Well, we make our way back. Old friend of the program and a great friend, Kevin Drake, is with us today. Kevin's been on the program a number of times. And before we get to what he's here for today, it was so funny because Kevin was calling me and he was like, all right, look, I want to get together and let's talk about something. And it was one day I said, well, look, and this is how you always be wise with the workforce. I said, I'll tell you what. I said, I'm kind of tied up on trying to meet for lunch or whatever. But I'm headed to the farm today to go do a little work. Why don't you join me there? And
you did to him what you did to Greg?
Yep, same thing. And so we're getting the work done. We were having a blast. And so all of a sudden, it's about a 30-minute ride back home from the farm. And he said, look, we got 30 minutes. He said, I want to throw something by you, and I want you to hear me out before you start interrupting me saying, here we go. Because as you knew, Kevin, I'm very distraught by this attack on football right now. And the hysteria, as human beings tend to lend themselves to with very little encouragement. And it's gone beyond, how we address head injuries. Now it's turned into football must be stopped, high schools up north doing away with their programs altogether. Oh, my gosh, mamas and daddies. What's the sad part is it's a lot of daddies, too, now, saying, oh, I don't want my kid involved with football. It's too – the president saying if I had a son, I'd have to think twice about it. Former players, and then of course we did the article the other day is football too rough for Christians, which was an outstanding article.
That's a fantastic article.
Yeah, and we were doing that, and I know you sent me yesterday because you read it for the first time, and you were telling me that your favorite quote from that article: the rugged physicality, demanding, purposeful aggression of football is an asset, not a liability, and there's actually much more positive that comes from your football experience versus the negatives. And there are you go out there, you could be injured, no doubt about it. So, but you wanted me to understand. We're not here to add to the hysteria. We're here to try to be a calming voice through all the hysteria. You may not know this. Kevin Drake's played football most of his life. He played all the way up through some of the youth leagues into high school, and then he played for a UAB in college where he was a quarterback, and in his senior year moved to wide receiver. He played in the NFL for the Cardinals, the Bills, the Broncos, the Cowboys. He played 2 summers in NFL Europe with the Scottish Claymores and in the Rain Fire where you won the World Bowl.
Bingo.
Mm-hmm. And also we met you when you played in the XFL for the Birmingham Thunderbolts.
You just had to bring that up, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, that's where we met. That's where we met.
Hey, we enjoyed that season.
Oh, hey, I'm going to tell you that. I mean, if they would have marketed it better, that league would probably still be around. It's just you had a buffoon marketing it.
Well, when you went out and you made an enemy of the NFL and you trash talked them, but really if you look at, like we talk about, I know it's a bizarre thing, the actual reality of it. Yeah. The XFL TV coverage had higher ratings than hockey and some of the other sports that are still on.
And it was a good time of the year too for that league because there wasn't everybody just starved for football at that point. So
and the innovation, the camera on the wires over the field.
Oh yeah, I mean it brought a lot to the game that you see today that you don't even know about, like that very camera. And then saw a lot of the big names. I thought they did a good job of keeping the big names at home and on the home teams, so that would draw attendance. And I thought it was good.
Did the NFL have the 2-point conversion prior to that? Was that one of the rule changes? There was several other little rule changes that worked its way into or maybe it was the tie. They wouldn't let it end in a tie.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
Yeah, you go overtime.
There were several changes.
You can still end in a tie in the NFL. It's just if you end in the overtime and nobody has scored.
Right.
The one thing I remember those games that maybe wasn't a good idea. That was where they laid the ball down, and let the 2 guys run full speed at each other.
That's the best part of the game. That was the most fun. That was awesome.
I love that.
That was awesome.
If you don't remember,
they were losing so many key players.
Put 2 Nimrods out there and let them just go at it.
They would fight over
a race to the ball.
Yeah, if you don't
remember those crashes.
Yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, and you're too young to remember that one season of the XFL. Bubba and I and Greg were all the broadcast team for the Birmingham team, and the way they decided who got possession first is they put the ball in the middle of the field, and 2 people ran after it into each other
10 yards
and fought for the ball.
Mm-hmm. Whoever got there first.
So
tell you what else I like. Whoever won made more money.
Yeah, I like that.
I didn't like that.
I didn't know what team you were
play in
on.
Birmingham. I mean, my goodness.
We
had a bunch of old broke players.
Yeah. Well, the thing that was valuably missing for all you skilled guys, especially the quarterback, was there were no offensive linemen.
There was no protection.
Wow.
That was ugly.
They should have had 3 Mississippi Rush or something.
Yeah.
So that's right. Check show notes today. It's called Wise Up. the Wise Up initiative, and this is kind of what Bubba and I have talked about. Look, the way we treated head injuries in all sports, not just football, and that's some of the things we're going to clear up today. This involves much more than football.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the second most concussions, female soccer,
Absolutely.
women's soccer.
Right.
So is how we now handle that injury, how we assess it, the process we go through to get the athlete back on the field or not. And that's all we needed to do.
Right.
And this hysteria and some of the things we're changing and all that has just turned into chaos, and it's turned now into a negative crosshairs on football. It must be stopped. Too hard, too dangerous, too barbaric, must go. And like we read in this article, it's almost like we've gone back to 1905 again. First of all, let's introduce, I met yesterday with Dr. Ferguson, who's here with us. Drew Ferguson is he's a pioneer in this part of the country on sports medicine, so good to see you again.
It's great to be here.
And had lunch with you yesterday to kind of talk about this. First of all, I think one of the things that you need to say loud and clear, these people that say that football is rougher today than in the past, that is absolutely incorrect.
That's exactly right. It's more safe today than it's ever been, and that's due to rule changes, in improvement in equipment. We still have a ways to go as far as improving the helmet, but as far as the rule changes and the state laws and the other things that have gone into effect nationwide over the past 5 years, it's safer now than it's ever been.
And you guys wanted to concentrate on what we do think is an area. You know, we've worked with other organizations, and they are doing a great job on the whole realm of injuries of all kinds and what to look for. But you guys decided on the Wise Up initiative, you would focus solely on the concussions and the head injuries. That you would focus all your energy there.
Well, and the reason we did that is because first and foremost is that it hit home with me more than anything. When we started to talk about doing this foundation and what we really wanted to do, I've suffered 7 or more concussions up to this point in my life. Not all of them were from football. A good bit were, and I'm sure there were a lot more. And those are just 7 documented. When 3, I was knocked out completely. There's days I don't remember, but there wasn't. When this whole issue with the NFL came up, the reason why I believe a lot of the hysteria has started and why it rose to such a great level is because all you hear is the bad news. We hear about guys that are dying at 38, killing themselves. Junior Seau. You got guys that have been exposed to repetitive head injuries that have gotten CTE, which is chronic traumatic encephalopathy. I didn't think I'd get that out. Though. You like that? How about that?
Nice.
Came right off the hip. How about
Nice.
that? I practiced that. I've been practicing that. But and that is, and it's caused from repetitive head injury. So when the higher levels, when something happens at the higher level in the NFL where all the money is and there's such a disturbance, then all of a sudden people pay attention to it, but then it gets a negative light. Now all of a sudden, like you said, and you and I have had plenty of conversation about this, football is all of a sudden a barbaric sport. We don't need to be playing it. It's too dangerous for our kids. But the problem is we're spending all our resources and all our money at the top level, and we're missing out on not spending and giving a lot of our resources to our most precious assets, which are our 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids that are playing football. There's not a lot of money being spent there. You've got coaches that work jobs 40, 50, 60 hours a week. They're not up to date on rule changes on the state concussion law, which Drew was one of 2 men that got passed here in Alabama. So, we don't have them abiding by these certain rules. We have to change, and Drew and I have talked about this before with Dr. Johnston, who is their neurosurgeon. We have to go about this to try to change the culture at the low end now, because you're not going to change what's going on up top. You're not going to change the way the NFL plays the game. It's a violent sport. It is. I knew that when I played it. I didn't jump on that concussion lawsuit because I knew what I was doing when I signed that contract, and I believe wholeheartedly, regardless of what they would have told me, I wouldn't have changed one thing. I would have kept playing the game the way I did, and I think everybody on that field will tell you the same thing.
Well, Romanowski was very open about he had mastered how to circumvent even the attempts in those days to take a person out of a game who had a head injury. He knew how to trick them, tell them the things that they wanted to hear, which is why our approach to the head injury must be changed.
Well, we have changed it.
And we have, and it must change at the youth level up, because I would say these men, and I know it's horrible if you're in this situation.
Sure.
But that's got to be something that has gone on throughout their entire football experience, not just when they played in the NFL.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
so we so tell us a little bit about. We'll come back and we'll talk about this about how people can participate, what you want to accomplish, and what are the latest. The latest research is showing us what when it comes to head injuries. And again, I know right now if you don't. Your athlete or doesn't participate in football, don't turn this off.
Yeah, no, don't.
No,
because don't. This is not about football. I mean, it is because we're in football. We're in the South.
Yeah.
But this goes from senior adults to infants. I mean, it goes all.
Well,
over.
one of the things we were talking about yesterday that you really educated me on is when it comes to female athletes and the way the female body is made. The neck muscles are not.
It just makes sense.
Are not as strong as a male. Therefore, their heads bang on the ground, and they can't keep their head from taking trauma as much.
Stop that
because
they're just meaner.
It's a whiplash effect. And the thing is, what people don't understand is that you don't have to have a force or a blow to the head to get a concussion. You can get hit in the side playing soccer when they run and they all go up for the ball, whatever. And even on the football field, you can get hit hard enough where your head whiplashes, where your brain, which is it's encased in the skull and it's floating there, it's not attached, so it's going to move when there's rapid movement. And that's where concussions are caused from. So it's not the blow to the head, and that's why helmets, and we can get into this too, equipment and helmets, the ones that claim that they can prevent to a certain degree concussions is absolutely a lie.
And these ridiculous caps they're putting on the helmets and all that crazy stuff. So we'll hit some of that when we come back. And if you got some questions, 866-WE-BE-BIG. Look at rickandbubba.com. It's a great opportunity for you to educate yourself on concussions, head injuries, and what the proper approach to that should be with the latest research that's been done. The Wise Up Initiative, their website, it's very helpful, easy to navigate, is at rickandbubba.com. Check it out right now. We'll be right back.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.
Top of the hour, we're talking to Kevin Drake, who's the program director of Wise Up, the Wise Up Initiative, and also Drew Ferguson. He's a director of sports medicine at UAB Medicine and has been in sports medicine. Dr. Ferguson, you said you were like a pioneer in sports medicine.
I'm a licensed certified athletic trainer. I'm not an MD, but I have been doing this since 1974. I graduated from Georgia and came to Birmingham.
And you worked in the professional ranks, college, you name it.
He was taping these back with the Birmingham Americans.
Right.
And
we talked about that.
And to stop this hysteria, we are approaching head injuries in football and in all sports different than we did before. And you were telling me yesterday at lunch, you were part of an athletic trainer that you used to, you pop that ammonia cap. Somebody's knocked out. I remember hitting goes. You smell that ammonia, answer a few questions, back in the game.
Right. Well, we didn't know back then. It was kind of the invisible injury.
Yeah.
We knew there was a problem because their mental dysfunction and temporary dizziness and other symptoms. But we'd pop that ammonia capsule and bring them around, and we'd hold them out for a series of two and ask them a series of questions and check them out neurologically as far as their reflexes, and then they could go back in the game. And, of course, now all that's changed, and we totally manage concussions differently because, by definition, in those days, you had to be unconscious to have a concussion.
Right.
And we know that's not true.
Right.
And so what we've done is we have, because of the research and understanding the brain and its function and understanding that a child's brain, as it develops, is different than an adult brain, and it takes longer for them to recover from concussions. It is a mild traumatic brain injury. And so what we do is we hold them out, and we also reevaluate them after 48 hours to really determine how significant those symptoms are. And then we don't allow them on the path to return to play as far as our guidelines until all their symptoms are gone. And that takes return to play guidelines will take a period of 3 to 4 to 5 days. 90% of what we see in our concussion clinic and in offices all over the country clear up and they're fine and they don't have any repercussions or long-term side effects. It's that 10% that we're really concerned with, and we've had 10-year-olds to 22-year-olds have significant symptoms that require full-blown neuropsychological testing.
Which is 10% of
right,
what you
right,
see.
Right, and changing the culture, in our opinion, is not doing away with football, but educating the coaches, the parents, and that's why we wanted to pass our concussion law. Historically, here in this state, we added the concussion rule to the Alabama High School Athletic Association rule book in 2010. We passed our statewide concussion law in 2011, which covers ages K through 12, in terms of making sure that all these coaches have the proper education every year on the signs and symptoms and how to recognize
in all
them.
sports.
Right.
Or if I'm
exactly.
Listen, you may not have a kid in sports, but I mean, he or she could end up with a concussion over life.
Yeah,
right.
That's
Yeah.
why you need to go to this website and be educated, because I think a lot of times you think, well, if my kid's not playing football, this is not an issue.
Oh, really?
For me.
Yeah, no, at the skating rink, riding your scooter
Listen,
in the
your kid's
neighborhood.
playing out on the playground in the backyard.
Yeah.
Can
Oh,
suffer a
yeah.
concussion. And the thing is that parents, and especially moms, don't know what to look for, and which could be dangerous. And knowing what to look for and being educated. And that's why we created Wise Up, because we wanted to take awareness and education to the public, to the ones that didn't know, because all the information's out there. It's like we talked about yesterday. The awareness and information is here, but our research is here, and we have to fill that gap. And it's a big gap. And then, but getting the information that Dr. Ferguson and them come up with through doing research, and us being able to partner up with them to help them with their research, to fund their research efforts, and us being able to go out, and me going out to speak, to talk to coaches, parents, schools, corporations, anybody, because if you are a parent or if you're just in the general public at all, you need to be aware of these things.
PE coaches.
Yes, exactly, because
Oh, yeah.
it is a bigger deal than people once thought, and it can be life-threatening to some degree. Now, it's a small percentage, and that's not when we're not, again, we're not here to say, whoa, concussions are they're a big issue with
they're
them.
out to get us, yeah.
Right, and that's not the case. But when that happens, you sure want to know what to do, okay? And it's it's the same thing about educating the public on smoking, on other things, and what it can do to the body and anything else. So that's our mission. Our mission is to go out and take this information to the public, that it's there. We just want to feed it to the public. And I don't want to just go somewhere and hand stuff off. I want to stay and talk about it. I want to teach what we know, and to tell parents, coaches, referees, which are our children's first line of defense that play sports. If you think about it, the coaches that are on the field, you and I have done it together, coaches that are on the field, the parents that are in the stands, and the referees, in my opinion, could play the biggest role of all, because they could actually keep a kid out of the game if they've been given that, and if they're educated enough to know that kid went off with a concussion or with a head injury, he's not to come back on, because the state law says he can't come back on. So I write his number down on a card, put it in my pocket. They try to put him back in. I'm not going to let him come back in. I'm not going to let the game continue. So it's a way to protect our children. And it's not trying to be overly – we're not trying to oversensitize this at all, but the occasions are there, and we want people to understand – what to look for, and then when you do, where to go and how to treat it.
Yeah, that echoes what we're doing, and what our goal is to educate everybody from the high school to the middle schools to the state law. When in doubt, sit them out. If they have a symptom, they're held out. They can't return till they have a physician's approval, and they go through the proper return to play guidelines in recovery. This also underlines the fact that one of our goals statewide, and you've seen this in a lot of other states, is to have a certified licensed athletic trainer at every high school and every middle school, so that there will be the one to take the pressure off the coach
the
to
resources.
make that decision.
right.
So
Coaches got a lot going on.
Well, the problem
already.
is that then you start talking about funding, inner city, and things like that. Can we afford to do it? Do we have enough help? Right. And you don't know.
Well, go find out everything. Get this. Look, the hysteria and the awareness is there. Now the education process has got to start.
It has to. I mean, that's where it stops.
And that's what the Wise Up Initiative is all about. Check it at rickandbubba.com.
Rick and Bubba.